So Fu Xuan's trailer just dropped, and I thought it'd be a good time to talk about Fu Xuan and Den Heng Nai. He's been out for quite a while, and I figured, well, if you aren't really going to roll for Den Heng, you probably will roll for Fu Xuan, or maybe you'll skip both, or maybe you'll roll for both. I think this is a video for those of you that are going for Fu Xuan, or maybe are still on the fence about Den Heng. Now, one of the coolest things about the release of Den Heng is that he has been the first character to actually be able to utilize Yukong really well. I think that's the best thing about him because Yukong is a support that really helps out a lot of damage dealers in general. He utilizes the crit rate, crit damage, the attack, and the imaginary damage bonus that this character provides to the whole team. He also is the only character in the team that wants to do damage in a hypercarry team. So therefore, this character is best for him, and I'm very glad he has a dedicated support that no one else has been able to use. I personally have been loving to use Planetary Rendezvous on Yukong because it gives a even further damage increase to Den Heng, which is very good for hypercarry damage dealers in general. Bronya is another character that has worked really well with Den Heng Baby Tunai. He's worked really well with every single offensive buffing support character, and Bronya is no exception. She works really well with the character because he wants really no speed, and Bronya gives him action forward, additional damage, attack, and crit damage, all you would want for the character. Depending on how fast your Bronya is, and whether or not you have her Eidolon 1 or her 5-star light cone, means you'll give more skill points to Den Heng. Being able to use your basic attack and then use your elemental skill before Den Heng even takes his turn means you'll have a very skill point neutral character, which is very good because Den Heng wants all the skill points he can get. And Luocha is always going to be the best character to use alongside Den Heng because Luocha is very skill point positive. He matches the same element as Den Heng, and he works virtually well in any team comp, meaning he's the most flexible character of the defensive option category we have right now. So if you have Den Heng and BB2 your team probably looks a lot like this, and this team works really well because every character here makes Den Heng a killing machine. Bronya giving much needed damage buffs to the character, action forward when it's his turn, and being able to give a skill point to the character, making her a very skill point neutral character in the setup, and then Luocha being a skill point positive character, which is very, very valuable for a character that needs the skill points, and then Yukong being a very functioning skill point positive character if you have access to her Eidolons, and further increasing that damage bonus that he'll get. It's crazy how much damage you can deal with these characters in your team. Even Jebhar, despite being a very slow, one of the slowest characters in the game alongside Clara, works really well with Den Heng because his character won't have any speed on his stat line. So Jebhar can make a use of that and give himself a ton of more speed to then take turns over Den Heng, making him a skill point positive defensive supporting character and pretty much functioning like Luocha without the cleansing. But it doesn't matter anyways because your one cleanser in this team will be Bronya. So it's almost as if Luocha's cleanse didn't matter in the first place. There's even a very solid free-to-play team, and if you don't even have access to the characters you would want to use with him, Ting Yun is a very strong character to use alongside Den Heng because having the character use ult more often means that he won't have to use up as many skill points. That's very good. And then Pela is an AoE defense breaker, which is good for a AoE blast or even pseudo AoE damage dealer like himself. And then Natasha is a healer, that one you get for free nonetheless. So of course she's going to be in the team because she is the most free-to-play option we have currently. As crazy as it might seem, you're actually able to use a full imaginary team with Den Heng because every character here works really well with him anyways. I mean, if you're using the Wastelander set on Den Heng, you're able to give him more crit damage or crit rate, which is very good if the enemies are imprisoned. And well, imprisons the enemies with his ult, while increasing the damage that they receive, making them more vulnerable to damage. That's very, very good as a support, offensive supporting character. And then all the other characters you would use alongside him make a character like hits even harder because of all the buffs that Yukong herself provides to the team. So at first glance, he might seem like a whale character, but the truth is the more investment you put into the character, the more damage he'll do, of course. But even at low investments, he still has very high damage outputs. I was very surprised with how much damage he did compared to my Seele at low investments. It's crazy how much damage this character can put out. No matter how strong Den Heng Baby Tulanai is, I will always be a quantum enjoyer, and I really do love using Seele even to this day. There's something about the gameplay of this character that I would just never get bored of. Being able to kill an enemy and then get a reset and then kill again, and then reset, and then kill again, and then reset. And if you don't get your reset, then Bronya pushes your character up, and then you take the turn again, and you kill, and you reset. Of course, if you have skill points, is a really fun playstyle that I don't think any other character will even come close to being as enjoyable as she is. Now, for the longest time, Seele hasn't really had a dedicated supporting character, or should I say a dedicated defensive option. I'm pretty sure you all know that. I mean, there is Luocha. Luocha is the best current defensive option you can use alongside Seele, but the truth is you want to have a character that matches the same element as your damage dealer. I mean, that's pretty much how the game works. Your goal is to break the weakness of the enemy. So for a lot of you out there, this is probably the team you're using right now for your Seele. You have your Bailu, you have your Silverwolf, who is the best supporter to use alongside Seele, and then you have Bronya, who is the other best supporter to use alongside this character. I can't imagine playing Seele without using Bronya and Silverwolf. I will always use these two characters alongside Seele because they are her best supports. And then Fu Xuan coming in the near future is the last character you would use in place of Bailu because she does everything Bailu wants to do but better. Makes her all the more appealing than a character like Bailu, while also being able to stop your team from getting CC'd. So right now, my ratio is pretty lacking. I mean, I have pretty low crit rate, I want higher crit rate, and my crit damage is okay. But if I have higher crit rates, then I could take advantage of a couple of things in the game. I can finally change my set from the Salcedo to the newest set, Rudolans, because I will have a higher crit rate, meaning I will take advantage of the needed 70% threshold in order to get the 20% extra attack, basic attack, and skill damage, which is very good for a character like Seele who is going to be using her elemental skill most of the time. As covered in recent videos, Fu Xuan has been known to be now a much more flexible character than she once was thought of. You can use her in a team with Kafka, meaning Kafka will take advantage of all the buffs Fu Xuan provides. Heck, even if you have a Kritka, you'll really enjoy that crit rate. But she turns all of your teammates into pseudo tanks. She gives them the CC resist, which is very good for a team that doesn't have any ways of mitigating CC effects. On top of that, she makes it to where you will soak a lot of the damage to your main tank, which is in this case going to be your Fu Xuan, and all of your damage dealers will stay relatively healthy. That makes her a very nice and safe option to use with virtually any character. Now, I personally don't have Jing on my account, but I'm sure every single Jing main on the planet will definitely be going for Fu Xuan. I mean, she has everything you would want from a defensive option. I mean, Luocha does exist, but Fu Xuan is still pretty good as that defensive option because she will stop your Jing from actually getting CC'd before he is CC'd. Very, very valuable. On top of that, she will mitigate a lot of the damage that the character will take anyways. And the crit buff is very good because, well, Jing is a character that you really want a lot of crit on. I mean, look at this Jing, 64% 109 crit damage isn't really the best ratio in the world, but being able to upgrade your crit rate means you can change your crit rate circlet into a crit damage one, meaning you'll have much more damage outputs with your main damage dealer. I'm pretty sure we can all agree that's a very nice thing. One of the other characters I can't wait to use alongside Fu Xuan is going to be Clara, actually, and that is because Clara is a destruction character that really doesn't want too much of a supporter like Luocha because he provides a ton of healing, but a character like Fu Xuan will be very good for Clara because, well, you can mitigate a lot more of the damage that the Clara will be taking, and on top of that, well, you can give Clara a crit bonus, which means you'll have much easier ways of having the higher crit stats you want on a damage dealer like this, because let's be honest, Clara is one of the hardest characters to build in Honkai Star Rail. You pretty much want every single stat except for speed and effect resistance. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that a character like Blade will also work well with Fu Xuan, and that is because Fu Xuan mitigates a lot of the damage that Blade will take, which means you can have him with lower HP thresholds and get away with having that HP and not have to worry about getting one-tapped by the enemy. I mean, Blade does have a lot of HP himself, but being able to mitigate damage further will be very nice for the character. And on top of that, crit rate, of course, as I'm always going to say, is very valuable because she really just gives you 4 crit rate rolls. And of course, Blade doesn't really want to be CC'd. Now, the only thing is, if you are going to use Blade alongside your Fu Xuan, there is one thing you have to take into consideration. Any Lycone that increases your taunt value on Fu Xuan is going to be very, very bad to have alongside your Blade. So make sure that if you are using Fu Xuan with Blade, you stay away from any way of increasing your own aggro value, because you of course want Blade to be the character getting hit the most. which means Fu Xuan will mitigate the damage anyways. But a character like Lynx is more suited for Blade, so that's just a heads up that the 4-star might just be better in general for Blade. Now I'm sure we all can agree, following the release of Fu Xuan, the most exciting team comp is going to be Mono Quantum. With this team, well, you have every single member matching the same element as Silverwolf, so she has a 100% chance of applying that quantum weakness to the enemy, and you're going to be breaking the toughness much more consistently because every single character in the Mono Quantum team does damage to the enemy's toughness. Even Fu Xuan with her ultimate and her basic attack, and she is a HP scaling sub DPS like character. I mean, she is a preservation defensive option first and foremost, but you can build her as a sub DPS. Take advantage of all of the debuffs that Silverwolf puts onto the enemy, increasing the damage of Fu Xuan herself. Now, it just so happened that both Heng and Baby Tulunai and Fu Xuan herself are both able to use the 5-star light cones in her to shop. Heng can really utilize on the fall of an Aeon because he increases his own attack whenever he attacks the enemy, which stacks up, which is very good for hyper carry damage dealers. And whenever he inflicts weakness break on the enemies, then he'll increase his damage by percentage, which counts as elemental damage bonus. That's very good because Heng hits a lot of the enemies many times because he has a lot of toughness hitting with his enhanced basic attack. Fu Xuan taking advantage of texture memories because she's a preservation character defensive option, meaning you want effective resist on the character, and she gives herself a shield that scales with her max HP. Every single preservation character currently has not been able to utilize this part of the passive because they are mostly defense scaling. So that means with her being the first HP scaling defensive option, you'll be able to really utilize all of the light cone entirely. So it's almost as if this light cone was tailor-made for the character. So there you have it. Fu Xuan and Heng Baby Tulunai are very two strong characters, one being a defensive option and the other being a very strong damage dealer, well currently the strongest damage dealer. So it's almost as if this is a very hard patch for free to play in general. I mean, if you have the hardest hitting damage dealer and you have the hardest tanking defensive option, it's like, which one do you choose? I mean, I personally have Seele, so it's a no-brainer to go for Fu Xuan. But if you don't have Seele like me and maybe you don't like using QQ, then I mean, how would you even utilize Fu Xuan? I mean, you can use her in any team comp you want, but you probably would be more inclined to go for that damage dealer, in this case Heng, and he is a very, very nice option to have on your account. That being said, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you're rolling for Fu Xuan, hopefully your pulls go well. If you have not rolled for Heng, you're maybe on the fence waiting for whether or not you should roll for him. If you go for him, of course, hopefully your rolls go good on that banner. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good rest of your day or night. Peace.